I'm way shorter than this. Let me get this right. Welcome. So as you heard, I'm from New Jersey, and anybody from Jersey here? And that was weak. And my mother's name is Angelina Josefina Scarlata Arlata. She's Jewish. She started out as a Catholic, but she wanted to marry my Jewish dad, and both of their families were really against it, but we're from Jersey, so they cut a deal. And my mother agreed to convert to Judaism, and my father agreed to raise the children as Catholics. So this Jew learned to do the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost twice to form a Jewish star. And as a kid, for me, it was really confusing. I went to church every Sunday with my Italian cousins, and when I was 7, I made my first Holy Communion. They told me I was getting married to Jesus. And I'm in my little white bride's dress and my veil, and I thought it was weird for a 7-year-old to be getting married, but I realized it was probably cool since Jesus and I are both Jews. And I was not a fan of the nuns, but there was one, Sister Maria, that was really nice to me. She was always whispering to me in Italian, Bella Monte Cristo. And I thought that was my special nickname until my cousin Carmen told me it meant Christ killer. Right? It's unfair. I mean, Jesus was dead before I even married him. And like a lot of immigrant parents, my mom's always been really overprotective, and she's always calling, Carla, did you lock the door? You never know. Carla, did you look in the back seat of the car? You never know. And about 10 years ago, Mom had a stroke, and so we moved her from Jersey to Pittsburgh so she could be closer to my brother, because he's a doctor. And she still calls all the time, but now she's got dementia, so she's a little paranoid. So she calls in the middle of the night, and instead of saying, did you lock the door, she says, your brother is a murderer. But he is still her favorite. And she had some trepidation about moving into assisted living, but we convinced her it was just like a college dorm. I mean, you move into a place with a bunch of people your own age, it smells weird. You spend your days watching TV and playing board games, you day drink, and you black out. My mom even has an RA like I had in college. Hers is different. She's 94, she drags an oxygen tank, and she sells better weed. And they have this funny yellow card system where you put a yellow card under the door at 10 o'clock at night, and you have to pull it in by 10 o'clock in the morning. And if your card's still out after 10 a.m., you're probably dead. So one morning, my mother's neighbor, Doreen, still had her card out at 10 a.m., and it caused full-on geriatric pandemonium. I mean, these ladies are scootering down the hall, and their wigs are half on, and they're screaming, Doreen, are you in there? Doreen! It was like Golden Girls on meth. And after about 20 minutes, finally, Doreen came out of Mr. Peterman's room. Yes, turns out Doreen is an old slut. And my mom developed this weird obsession with the Israelis, which I'm sure has nothing to do with her conversion to Judaism. But she started calling and saying, the Israelis are trying to kill me. They've poisoned my food. It tastes like gefilte fish. I said, Ma, you're eating gefilte fish. And then one day she called 911 and told them the Israelis had put a bomb in her apartment. So the police came. She thought they were the Israelis, and so she wouldn't let them in. They eventually got in. They took her to the hospital, and my brother rushed over to meet her, but they wouldn't let him in because my mother had told security he was an assassin for Mossad. It's just gotten better and better. And a couple of years ago, I turned 60, and do I get applause? And my mom still called me on New Year's Eve to tell me to put a cocktail napkin over my drink when I went out so somebody didn't slip me a Mickey. I just turned 60. I would be happy if somebody slipped me a 5-hour energy. And the next morning, my phone rings, and it's my mom. And I'm hungover because I forgot the whole napkin drink thing. And I pick up and say, "Happy New Year's, Mom." But it was my brother calling to tell me my mom had died that morning. Yes, that woman really knows how to wreck a holiday. I mean, she was 82, but it was completely unexpected. And, we didn't have any kind of a plan. So I called the assisted living, and they put me in touch with her nurse, Patty. And I said, "Patty, what happened?" And she said, "Well, your mom was awake, she was eating, and then she fell over and she died." I said, "Great story, Patty." And then she said, "You need to get your mother out of here today." And I said, "Well, what does that mean? I'm 400 miles away in Jersey." She said, "Well, she can't stay here. She's dead." And I said, well, what do you usually do?" And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "It's assisted living. We know how this ends." And she said, "Well, we don't really have any protocol. So apparently death is the end of the assistance." And I did know that we have a plot in a Jewish cemetery in South Jersey where my dad is buried. And but for the past 2 or 3 years, my mom had been saying she wanted to be buried in a Catholic cemetery. And I want to be a good daughter and honor her wishes. So I called my brother back and I said, "Alan, what do we do?" And he said, "Well, we can't really worry about it. She's never going to know." So I called the Jewish cemetery. They're closed, it's New Year's, and I'm really starting to panic. I left a message, and so I get my laptop and I Google how to move a body from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. As you might imagine, there was a lot more information about moving bodies out of New Jersey. But I try everything. I'm like, does UPS have express shipping for corpses? FedExing the dead when it absolutely, positively needs to be there overnight. And eventually, my phone rings, and it's the cemetery, and they put me in touch with Howard from the funeral home. And I give him the whole spiel. Howard, I got to move my mom, got to be today. She's in Pittsburgh. He said, calm down. I got a guy. I got a guy out in Pittsburgh that I use to move the Jews. And I'm thinking, what is that, Juber? But anyway. But I am relieved. And the next morning, he sends me pictures of caskets, because I have to pick one. And I'm on the spin bike in my gym, and I'm really stressed. And I'm looking through, and I honestly had no idea there were so many choices. And there were mahogany oak and oak and hinge tops and glass tops. And I see the guy on the bike is looking over at me weird. And I just smiled and said, Tinder. And then the nest morning, bada bing, Mom is back in Jersey, and I set the funeral for Friday, and it was beautiful. We did all the things, the torn black ribbons and the 3 shovels of dirt, and I gave the eulogy, and I thought my mother would really be proud and that she would really absolutely love it, except maybe for the location of her eternal rest. But when it's over, Howard from the funeral home just sort of waves at me, and I go over, and he shows me this little plastic hospital bracelet with my mother's name on it. And he said, I just wanted to show you this so that you know that it's really your mom in there. And this was not something that I thought about at all, until now. And I'm starting to freak out. I mean, what if my mom's not in the casket? What if she's still in Pittsburgh or Palestine? And I'm like just getting agita, and I don't know what to do. And I walk over to the hole, and I'm like looking down, and I hear my mother's voice, and she says, Carla, you should have gotten the glass top one because you never know. Thank you.
Carla Katz, everyone.